Hello, Dave here from DM Online, davemenzies.com. I wanted to do a quick video about GDPR, which, unless you've been living in a cave for the last few months, or possibly even years, is a new set of regulations that comes into force for anyone who is running a website or gathering information on people in general, to do with data protection. That comes into force 1 week from today on the 25th of May. And I just wanted to do a little video about some of the resources, some of the stuff that I've found myself, which has been really helpful in getting my own websites to what I hope is a compliant sort of state. I'm going to share those resources with you. If you look in the description there's going to be a few links there to resources from big hitters in the industry like Aweber or Digital Marketer, people who are obviously closely involved in this process. So I want to make a big disclaimer first of all to say that I'm not a lawyer. You really need to do your own research on this, but hopefully the links that I'm sharing will be of some help to you in doing that. And I'll just explain what I've done myself as well. So GDPR at the moment applies to anyone who is marketing or building lists or running a website, gathering any kind of data on people within the European Union. And I'm pretty sure this will eventually expand to all parts of the world. So it's something that we all need to be looking at and doing our own due diligence and our own research. But over the last few weeks, I've come to notice that there's an awful lot of confusion about it. And I've managed to kind of drill down into a fair bit myself and taken steps that I think are largely going to do the job for me. So essentially what this is all about is data protection, as the name suggests. So whether you know it or not, if you're running a website, you are gathering data from people in all sorts of ways that you might not even be aware of. Not largely personal details further than like possibly a name and an email address, which if you're building lists and if you have a subscriber list and you have forms on your website which you're gathering information from people. But you also have a lot of cookies on your website. If you're doing advertising on Facebook or Google or any of the other platforms, you're possibly using marketing pixels to track the sort of behavior of people who are visiting your websites and your ads and your landing pages and all of that sort of stuff. And all of that comes into what GDPR is looking at. So you have to be aware of a couple of things. Well, mainly, one of them is your cookie policy. So you now have to be aware, you have to let people visiting your websites know that you have cookies on that website that are gathering various little bits of information, really just tracking their behavior on your websites, what parts of your website they're visiting and so on. And cookies work in all sorts of different ways. They hold bits of information sometimes just for as long as the person's there, sometimes it's for a longer period of time. So you now have to have on your website, amongst other things, a cookie policy, and you need to really have a banner coming up on a website, on every page on your website, essentially, that advises people in a short bit of text explaining what cookies are and why some of them are necessary for the website to work and others are gathered for different reasons, like, as I say, marketing, advertising, behavioural statistics, that kind of thing. So you kind of need to be able to have something on your website that people see the minute they visit it that allows them to decide whether they want to allow cookies or not. And even beyond that, they need to be able to, you need to be able to tell them which cookies are there. Now, it all sounds kind of complicated, and obviously there is a huge amount of confusion still around this, even though it goes into effect effectively in a week from today. But there are people providing all sorts of solutions. Obviously, this is going to turn into massive business for a lot of people who are providing, resources and plugins and so on that will do that for you. But there's also an awful lot of myths, and one of the links I'll give you is from Aweber, which is a blog post of theirs explaining why some of these things are kind of myths and aren't actually the case. And they have actually been liaising with people who are actually producing the regulations. So you'll hopefully find those kind of useful. The other thing that you also need to be aware of is if you're building lists of people, you will have to get in touch with these people and ask them to take some kind of action to enable them to stay as a subscriber on your list. You may possibly even have to delete some of them. Again, this is something you kind of need to do your own research on, but again, some of the articles I'll link you to in the description here go into that in a bit more detail and give you some ideas of what you can do. One of the things I've done is I'm part of the Six Figure Mentors community, which gives me quite a lot of advantages when it comes to stuff like this, in that there are an awful lot of very advanced marketers in that community who are providing the membership with a lot of advice and resources, and have actually looked into this in a lot of detail and are producing resources and plugins and software and bits and pieces to help with that. But you can find them yourself just by doing searches, and like I say, I'll provide 2 or 3 links underneath here that I'm sharing with my subscribers, that have been shared with me and that I've put into action. One of them, when it comes to the cookies, is a software program called CookieBot, and that will actually analyze your websites for you, your domains for you. And basically this has to be on every domain or subdomain that you own. So it's something that you really need to be aware of. What CookieBot will do is it will scan a website for you, and it will identify all of the cookies that are in there and classify them into whether they are functional, whether they're just cookies that are necessary for the website to function, whether they're for marketing, whether they're for statistics or for other purposes. And that will produce, when you go through that process, it will then produce scripts that you can add to your website, which will produce the little cookie opt-in or opt-out banner on your website. It is a paid service, and I'm sure even although we're at quite late stages now, I'm pretty sure if you look around, there are already some free WordPress plugins and so on. There will be lots of resources coming onto the market for this. So hopefully you'll find these useful. I also just wanted to say, again, I must stress that I'm not a lawyer, don't take this as absolute verbatim, but there does seem to be quite a lot of scaremongering going on about potential fines that people who are not compliant by next Friday might find themselves paying. And I've heard figures bandied around like fines of 20 million euros or 4% of your global annual turnover, that kind of stuff, which is obviously pretty worrying. But I have also heard in my research that fines are going to be very much a last ditch sort of thing. You will, as far as I'm aware, or as far as I can work out, if you're not compliant and you're found not to be compliant, then you will be contacted and given a chance to remedy things and told why you're not compliant and what you need to do to become compliant. So the fines are very much a kind of last resort. So that's kind of really all I can really add to the conversation at the moment. It is happening. It's something you need to be aware of if you're marketing online, if you're running a website, if you have subscribers or lists of people, if you have data you've collected on people in Europe, whether you're marketing there or not. This is stuff that you really need to be aware of and take action on. And hopefully these resources that I'll provide underneath here will go in some way to help you towards doing that. So what I've done on my own websites, I've got several websites. I've added CookieBot to those websites. I've had those scanned and all the cookies identified. I've created a cookie policy. I've updated my privacy policy and my disclaimers. And I've been in touch with the subscribers on my own lists to ask them to basically to confirm whether they want to remain subscribers or not. And if they decide not to, or if they don't take action on that, possibly going to have to remove quite a lot of subscribers from my list, which is possibly not a bad thing. If they're not actually being active on the list, then there's not really any point in being there in any case. So that's it. Interestingly enough, there's a lot of myths again, which if you look at the Aweber blog underneath here, they dispel a number of myths. One of them is that you have to have double opt-in on any forms that you have on your website, subscriber forms where you're asking for names and emails, that sort of thing. According to Aweber and their research, you actually don't have to do that. You really just have to explain very clearly in just some text, a couple of sentences under any opt-in boxes you have, why you're gathering that information and what they can actually expect in return for giving you their details. In my case, I often give away a series of 7 videos from 6 Figure Mentors, But beyond that, after those 7 videos, people remain subscribed to my list, and I contact them periodically with tips and advice and resources and insights, that sort of thing. So as long as you make people aware that that's what they're getting, then you're kind of covered. As far as myself and a lot of my colleagues can determine, then that's you covered from that point of view. But that's just one of the areas of GDPR that you kind of need to look into and work through some of the kind of myths and scaremongering that's going on out there. So anyway, hope you find that helpful. Like I say, I can't go into this in a hell of a lot more detail, just to provide those resources for you that I've certainly found useful and have been passed on to me by people I trust implicitly. Okay, so thanks for watching. Dave here, davemenzies.com. Feel free to leave any comments and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more of my videos. Cheers for now. Bye-bye.